Yes, folks, Jacinda Ardern Media are at it again. This time they are trying to push electric cars onto New Zealanders, even though the Labour Party in Australia got thumped, in part, for pushing electric cars on Australians. So I'll set this off with Alan Jones, simply because he puts things nicely into perspective.
2 out of every 3 Australians who voted on Saturday voted for someone other than the Labor candidate. In Queensland, it was almost 3 out of 4 who voted for someone other than the Labor candidate. The Labor Party have been wiped out. Now, I just want you to have a look at this map here. This is the map of Australia. Now, look up north. The red is the Labor Party. That's those 2 seats I was talking about. The dark red is 1 seat. That is Bob Catter, poor fellow. He's got a seat bigger than Victoria. Go south to New South Wales, and the green, that is the National Party. Now, what do you see? What do you see? Almost nothing. Specks of red. And what conclusion do you draw? Labor, apart from the Northern Territory, check the map, and a bit of Tasmania, are just now an inner Sydney, Melbourne party. You can go to Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and have a look at those areas on the map, and not hit a Labor seat. Labor are now reduced to a party, I repeat, of inner Melbourne and inner Sydney. All that blue is Liberal. Now, many of us grew up with a national Labor Party machine that was fearsome. Now, the Labor Party is a provincial soy latte set that can't win anything outside a bicycle ride from the ABC studios. Can you imagine Bob Hawke or Paul Keating or Barry Unsworth leading a Labor Party that loses in outer Western Sydney? A Labor Party that would sack miners and enforce electric cars that no one could afford.
Yes, and that's exactly the point, isn't it? The Labor Party in Australia are no longer the working man's party. They are now the party of the soy latte sipping elites. They are now supporting people who can actually afford electric cars. Now, folks, you would have thought that the Labor Party on this side of the ditch would have learnt something from Labor's stumping in Australia. But no, have a look at this from Jacinda Ardern Media.
Welcome back. Norway is leading the charge on electric vehicles. They make up around half of all new buys this year. But in many nations such as Britain, there's still a reluctance to fork out for a greener but pricier option. The BBC's Tom Burridge explores Norway's electric success.
We chose a petrol one because it just fitted our needs. Electric cars do seem to be a little bit more expensive. Definitely felt a bit guilty. I wanted to support the green cause, but for us, I think it was really the range and the anxiety of getting stuck somewhere.
John is typical of UK consumers. Research suggests most of us wouldn't buy an electric as our main car in the next 5 years. In Norway, they've cracked the electric transition because nearly half of new cars bought here so far this year are electric.
It's been a bit crazy, actually, the change that we've had in Norway so far. We have a system where we tax cars we don't want, meaning petrol and diesel engine cars that pollute, and we don't tax electric cars.
Yeah, so you can see what's heading New Zealand's way. They're going to start taxing the working man simply because they can't afford electric cars. So in effect, the working man will be subsidising the elites.
So no VAT, a quarter of the price of a car. And this car park is full of them because it's free if you're electric. Oslo's local government has made charging very cheap here too. And check this out, in an electric, you can even drive in the bus lane.
We just needed a car, and for us, the electrical car was the best choice. We had chargers, it's cheaper than to buy a normal car, and it's much cheaper to use. It's easier to choose electric because you know people who have had them, you have tried one, you have seen them all around, you know they work.
Driving the change in Norway is basic economics, and electric is, for many, now the cheaper option.
However, compared to Norway's nearly 50%, just over 1% of new cars registered in New Zealand this year are electric. That's despite sharing similar financial concessions, such as road user charges. But It is easier and cheaper to charge in Norway, and petrol is even more expensive than here.
But what aren't these propagandists telling you? Well, they aren't telling you that Norway's GDP per capita is the fourth highest in the world at $82,773. Come down to Australia as 11th in the world at $57,204. Come down even further. New Zealand's on 24th in the world at $42,009. So New Zealand's GDP per capita is half that of Norway. So where's the money going to come from in the working man's wages to pay for the electric cars? But it gets even worse, folks. Over 99% of the electricity production in mainland Norway is from hydropower plants. So they have 99% clean energy coming from hydro. Well, New Zealand's hydro power is about 57%. So where's the electricity going to come from to power electric cars? Where is the clean energy going to come from for that? They haven't told us that yet. And it's even worse in Australia. 75% or 73% of their electricity comes from coal. So these electric cars in Australia have to be powered by coal, which is completely absurd. But it gets even worse, folks, and this would have to be the worst. Norway's top export is mineral fuels, including oil. That's their top export. So these nice Norwegians, these nice greeny Norwegians, are keeping their country clean while exporting pollution around the world. Yes, folks, electric cars are not going to solve any problem whatsoever. But there's one other point I kind of get baffled with these Greens, and that is this. Why do they use scary terms like global warming and climate change when they could simply call it pollution? I think they would probably get a bit more support if they called it pollution, because I don't know of anyone who actually likes pollution.